And we are so excited that you're here with us tonight. And tonight we're going to talk about Cryptids with Reverend Mary Hawk and myself, Ed the Pagan, across the world, the newly formed chairman of the CNC Incorporated Church, as well as Witch School and all of those wonderful places. So we are here, and I am also one of the founders of Pagan World TV, as long as the general manager, Mary Hawk, and we're bringing you the Daily Spell.
Good evening, everyone, and hello, Reverend Michael. We see you in the chat room. Thank everyone for joining us tonight. And we are going to talk about cryptids.
Mm-hmm.
And we would love to hear any stories you have about your own encounters with cryptids. Have you seen one? Smelled one? Heard one?
Yeah.
Hi, Jada, and I am near Nashville, so hi from this part of Tennessee.
Right.
So,
So I've had a cryptid encounter. I mean, I've met a baby. I actually touched in my. I had an encounter where I believed to this day it was happened that I touched a cryptid, a Bigfoot baby, not an adult. Everybody always talks about finding adults, but this was a very young person, a very young creature, and it kept creeping up and creeping up, and it reached out his finger. I touched his finger, and then it ran away. Uh, But I did that in Northern California when I was very young. I was really young. I mean, not military. But no, I had that encounter in the forest where this entity came up to me. Physical, very much a smell. Then they touched the thing. Cryptids are not, but what are cryptids? I see somebody says crypt means ghost. Everyone had one. But what does cryptids mean?
well,
I know you did
cryptids,
research.
yes. Well, I have been fascinated by cryptids since I was very young
Hmm.
and found a book about the Loch Ness Monster in my elementary school library. A cryptid is a creature that is not known to science. There is a science, or it's sometimes called a pseudoscience, called cryptozoology that studies these beings. And I'm not referring to ghosts or spiritual entities. These are physical entities or entities that take a physical form on our plane from time to time, anyway. And by
Hmm.
cryptids, I'm including Sasquatch or Bigfoot, the Loch Ness Monster,
Hmm.
Chessie, the Chesapeake Bay Monster.
Mothman.
Uh, yes, Mothman.
And Mothman is
Uh,
over by, I believe, Starwood.
West Virginia.
West Virginia, because one of the big facilities that they've seen them. Chupacabra is one of my favorites.
Yes, the Chupacabra is one. The Wendigo would be one. Um,
Hmm. People for years
so
we had a creature off Lake Michigan in Chicago. We thought about that. They thought it was another Nessie, but it vanished. It was like about 8 or 9 years, and then it disappeared.
yeah, that sounds like the same class of Nessie and Chessie.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, and so yeah, like I said, I've had an experience with Bigfoot. I've heard Loch Ness monster. They think it might be the ghost of a dinosaur.
yeah, now except it's a rather physical ghost because it has appeared, for instance, on sonar,
Yeah.
pacing boats. And the water is so murky, you can't really see what it is as far as
Hmm.
looking at it, but there are boats reporting sonar of something pacing them underwater. perhaps 30 to 40 feet down, but a large something at least 20 feet in length. There are assorted photographs of Nessie, some of which have been debunked as hoaxes,
Mm-hmm.
and some which there aren't a good explanation for if you don't want to say, yes, there's something living in the loch. And there are stories of a water monster in the area going back to at least the 900s AD when St. Columba is said to have encountered one.
There you go. I mean, I grew up in Illinois. We have a number of them. We have the Lake Michigan sea serpent. I remember that one.
Hmm.
And that's still, it's still every occasion that people try to talk about that one. Uh,
The mermaid in Percy Priest Lake. I have not seen the video. I have
mhm.
heard that a mermaid might have been spotted there.
So another one in Chicago, in the Chicago area, we've seen are the idea of the giant black panthers, like in the middle.
Yes.
So part of cryptids, so chupacabra is one. They think it might be actually. They're starting to actually identify a what they thought was an extinct creature that fits the bill, and it may not be. It may not be extinct. So it's called a Thracian being. It's called a Thracian, and
Hmm.
it's kind of like a wolf. It's kind of like a Tasmanian devil, and there you go.
Yeah,
And
now chupacabra is found in Puerto Rico.
it's in Illinois. It's all over the
Is
Southwest.
it?
Oh, it's not just Puerto Rico. It's originated there, but it's been seen all over Illinois, all the way into Texas, all the way down into Mexico and northern South America. Chupacabra is like possibly a real creature, and it may be a mix of creatures. A lot of times people talk about it being like mange. There's a disease called mange that it might be mange dogs or other animals that suffer from mange. So it really looks like a very weird creature. But if you see creatures without their fur, they look really different.
Now, this is true. You've seen what a hairless cat looks like.
Right. And so they think Chupacabra may be various sightings of creatures, either down in South America of an extinct creature that's kind of appearing, or a lot of different types of animals that may have suffered from mange. So I've always thought that was interesting.
That is interesting. Now, I firmly believe there's something in Loch Ness. I think there are too many stories going back too far.
Well, but there can always be stories that live all the time. Hmm?
Yes, I know.
Sorry, folks.
That's okay.
But my
And yes,
favorite.
as Joanne noted, I do have a small company tonight. That was
Okay.
the grandkid who was told to be quiet, and you'll note she didn't say a word.
Yeah, there you go. Now, we used to have a creature called an ass, which was also known as the uh, stump pond monster, or I'm looking at the tunnel bottoms monster. In Carbondale, it was like a swamp creature. Hmm?
Mm-hmm.
And it showed up a couple of times. So it was like stunk to high heavens. And that's like just Southern Illinois. So I know a lot about my Illinois ones, but I don't know much about others. But cryptids are different from aliens. Aliens come from outer space. Cryptids are supposed to be here. The most famous cryptid, I think, though, let's talk about it. Is one of my favorites is the Yeti or the abominable snowman. I think that
Yes.
was the one that caught my youth because when they were going up, when suddenly everybody was starting to really climb up the Everest and the other big mountains,
Mhm.
they were sighted a lot, and now maybe more people. They're not that much.
Well, we might have scared them away.
Well, supposedly they were aliens or they're beings from another with a nearby dimension that would pop in and out of ours. That was the biggest explanation, and that's been an often explanation for a lot of cryptids, as well as fae, ghosts, and other supernatural entities. That we live in a multiple reality piece, and
Mm-hmm.
act, and actually this week I'm suffering from a terrible Mandela effect. So I'm hoping I emerge out of it. but I've been popping between the. I've had the exact same communication. I know it in three different dimensions. I seriously, it's true. And it's the exact same
Yes.
communication. It's the exact same conversation under three crucially different possibilities. And yet I've had the same conversation. Hmm? It's weird. So
Oh,
the
I'm
I,
sure it is.
but then we hear people talk about cryptids, and that the Yeti or they may be in a nearby dimension. I have my biggest problem with Bigfoot is that I think that you have $10 million hunters who go out and hunt all sorts of stuff. They'll spend big fortunes, and whereas I really don't think if those guys are out there, they could actually avoid them. I mean, they claim they did. So I have a hard time with a lot of the cryptids because we don't have any dead bodies. But then science will come up and say, "Oh, we just found this in the forest." Like, where'd that come from? Yeah. So
Right.
so it gives you
Now,
back.
it's interesting you bring up Bigfoot because several of the Native Americans in the Northwest have a legend that the Bigfoot is an interdimensional being and they're only coming into our dimension on occasion. So, if they come here to hunt or to do something else,
Mhm.
then they can slip back into another dimension.
Well, that's a big thing. We see so little of this reality. I mean, as much as we are,
Mhm.
um, people don't realize how much we don't see. Because so much of the spectrum is outside of us, and so much of the sound spectrum is outside of us, and everything else. So there is uh, energy out there.
There is energy, and
Hmm.
yeah, there is energy we're not experiencing. There is also the fact that many times people see pretty much what they expect to see.
Yeah.
So, if you're not expecting to see something outside your normal reality,
Hmm.
you may not perceive it even if it's there.
Right. And so that's really kind of it. So, folks, so somebody talk about spirit walkers. Well, there's two. There's two different types of spirit walkers. There are a lot of stories of spirit walkers, which are different forms of entities. They kind of work out there, and people see them, and they can affect you. Sometimes well, some of that. There's another one called skin walker, and the idea of that is that they take your skin or other people's skins and lives in it. That's a frightening thing. There's a whole show about skinwalkers rats. So no matter what we talk about these cryptids and these spirits, people really want them to be there.
They do. I think we all want a sense of wonder about our
Hmm.
world. And too often, it seems like science is in the business of explaining away everything and not leaving room for that sense of wonder.
Yeah, I don't believe that. I don't think that's true. I think people make that up in their minds. Um, I don't think that's true. I think they don't want to see it. I think they want to be with other people. I think people want to eliminate wonder from their world. I don't think they want it because by very nature, awe and wonder, especially the idea of awe, it's not something they can control. And I think people want to control their world so much they're not willing to take on the sort of idea of awe and wonder, and they really try to kill it. So, and when you see the science of it, because I've met real scientists who study this, they're in awe and wonder of the science that they're doing. They report it and they go, "Oh, that's just so explainable." They don't want to deal with that novelty. Just today was a major movement in AI. Everybody's talking about AI, but they were kind of reporting it down. But the 3.5 GPT just may have passed the test for what they call theory of mind and may mean that the AI they were working with may have understood itself. Like that,
Wow.
yeah, that it was self-comprehensive that it is. And been hearing about Bing, right, out there. So
Mhm.
being out there, and theirs is having some real difficulty. Their AI. So we're seeing these cryptid creatures. We're actually seeing cryptid creatures that will be part of our landscape in the future. I mean,
Yes.
can you imagine that? I mean, one of the things I think about is that we will see sort of like internet cryptids, things that sneak into your page.
Oh, wow. Okay. That,
Seriously,
yeah, yeah. I mean, we've already got the thing in the backyard we haven't identified.
really?
Really? You saw it, I saw it. We don't know what it was.
Oh,
Probably a raccoon.
we think it's raccoon, but we haven't identified it yet. I hope it's something real. It would be great if it was like something really remarkable.
Yes, and Lori is telling us about seeing
Hmm.
a bear basically in two different places, if I'm reading it correctly.
Hmm.
And the
Okay.
bear was not there in this reality.
So there's a question about shapeshifter, right? A shapeshifter, a cryptid or spirit? And the answer is yes. And they both are. They can be either one or the other. A lot of cryptids aren't shapeshifters by per se. They're like a form of biological entity, and you see things that are more spirit oriented, being shapeshifters, because they can fool the eye. They're more illusionary. They're more quantum, or whatever you want to call it, but they affect your frontal cortex a lot more than say cryptids. So cryptids tend to be more solid. A Loch Ness monster, a Bigfoot. Whereas I think spirits might be closer like the skinwalkers. They might be have some physicality, but the skinwalkers, ghosts, all sorts of different entities. And I think there are between them. I think Mothman could either be a spirit or a creature, but people tend to identify it as a creature.
It, well, there are reports of it, bouncing around off different trees,
So the one
jumping from tree to tree, but they saw it land, saw the branch move.
So for maybe about 2 decades, we had one in Chicago that supposedly jumped fences, and people swore they saw it. I don't think I saw it, but I saw a lot of people on it. I wanted to. I think like everybody else, go, oh, I think I saw it, but it was really parkour. People were doing parkour, where they jump from building to
Parkour?
yeah, parkour, dressed as a dog man. But we had a dog man, not a werewolf, but a dog man running around Chicago for almost 20 years on and off.
So was this like a man with a dog's head or
Like a werewolf, but it was much more dog like. Mm, yeah. So, yeah, it was like dog man. It's called Dog Man. It was called the Dog Man. We ran around. And I knew some kids probably, some of them were probably people dressed up, but people
I
saw
mean
him
that
run.
that would be too good not to try. I have to say that.
Oh, I want to do this. So we've got the hoaxes, we got the belief systems. There's all sorts of different ways people get involved, and all these guys get cryptids. But every once in a while, we find one and find it. Oh my God, that is the basis of a cryptid.
Yes.
I mean, people have gotten think about giant sloths, like really supersized giant sloths. But if you go down in South America, there are areas where they have the tunnels left over from the giant sloths, and you can drive a train down there. You can drive cars down there. These entities have to be big, and yet people talk about this every once in a while. They say, no, they're still around, and we can't find them, but they live underground. So and they've left these tunnels, so there might yet be a few of them around. So I do think some of our prehistoric or antique creatures are actually still surviving in places that get to be called cryptids.
Yes. And the Loch Ness monster is generally considered to possibly be a dinosaur.
And there's been, yeah,
It
I've seen
came
that.
off the water snake.
Well, we have to understand there are certain entities on the earth. right now that are descended from dinosaurs, including us. We were dinosaurs once. People go, "What?" It's true. Our
Hey,
DNA.
Neil.
Hey, Neil. I haven't seen Neil in a while. Hi there, guys. Um, Neil Goodman, Chasing the Endless Summer. Coming up, we're starting to develop the second season. We got a lot of exciting shows. Um, and Neil's possibly a cryptid person. He's seen a few things. He lives a lot out in the festival lands. Um, and he's like the Mothman is one of the more unusual ones. It's seen a lot of places. There's Chicago, I believe in Starwood, or is it Brushwood that they see it right over the border. Uh, Neil knows this one. Which park is which festival has Mothman? Um, but we got that. But that one always pretends they say it like a car accident or other sort of energy. So it makes it kind of sound like it's an energy eater, which makes it more of a spirit. So yeah.
Yes, it's associated with the collapse of the bridge
Hmm.
heading into Galapagos, Gallipolis, Ohio, that this bridge collapsed in 19 oh, when was that? And it was a bridge built in the early part of the city
Hmm.
and or the early part of the century. And it was seen flying around the bridge collapse in the 60s. It was seen flying around the bridge that collapsed from a failed I beam.
And so I do feel like with cell phones, we should be getting a lot more pictures of cryptids, and we're not. So
Now that is a valid point. Everybody's got a camera with them at all times now.
now there are some amazing pictures that I've missed because I didn't have my cell phone out and just pointing at it. Birds, all sorts of little weird things that have happened. So we don't always have our phones out, but my gosh, miss them so often.
Yep, we do.
Hmm.
On the other hand, it wouldn't be much of a cryptid if it couldn't stay hidden.
Oh, I don't. I guess so. Well, then it would be identified by very nature of it. Would be identified as a creature. Now there's
Yes,
so I guess it would end it as a cryptid. So once it's identified, it's given a name and everything, and there it goes.
there it goes. And I
Yeah.
admit it is just a little bit of romanticism in me. I
Mhm.
just want to believe in a world with cryptids.
I've seen that sign. I want to believe. Now they supposedly have seen some people look at the cameras and the pictures saying there's things on Mars that would be considered, by our standards, cryptids. It may be perfectly natural there, but like, oh my god! And people have talked about moving rocks, and they've talked about flowers, kind of like a Lincoln growing. Can you
Hmm.
imagine? Are there Martian creatures? Possibly.
Well,
Are there?
if it lives on Mars, is it a cryptid or a Martian?
It would be Martian, wouldn't it?
Yes.
It would be native.
Yeah.
But yeah, remember when we get to natives, we haven't got a good track record with them. So watch out, Mars. If you're natives there, yeah, I'd be a little careful. We're coming for you. But you do know Mars is the only planet inhabited solely by robots. They got a lot of robots there.
As far as we are aware, Mars is the only planet inhabited by robots. I had never thought of it that way, but you are very right, Ed.
Yep, the only life form on Mars is the various robots and robot bodies. So when an alien technology comes out, what's this? Oh my god! And they'll have to figure out if they were sent from somewhere, i.e., so what happens if robot culture starts replicating on Mars? Let's say we never make it there, but we get enough robots, give a few replicating robots, and a million years later they go, Huh. We might be related to these machines on Earth. Oh, those are so primitive. Like, we can't be descendants from them.
Oh, wow. Wow.
What?
That is a really interesting idea.
Oh, I'm a firm believer that we're about to make. So there's a thing called Kevin Kelly. So let's talk about a little bit stranger what will be coming like the computerized or the metaversal cryptids, i.e.,
Okay.
ones we create. And Kevin Kelly believes the idea of that technology is the seventh order of life. It has all the rules of life. It has all the things. It's breeding itself. It's trying to make itself great. And at some point, we're compulsioned as creator beings, right, to make self-replicating robots. Once that happens, and self-repairing robots on top of it. So if they self-replicate and that's what they're heading for, and become self-repaired, they do not have to be self-aware. They just have to be worked enough that slowly but surely life would be there, and we can make self-aware robots, and they become self-aware, and then what they don't need us anymore. But Gaia needs them, and they'll send out robots and robot intellectually out there. That's possible.
It is.
Or we build cryptid bodies. We do cryptids out in the world, like somebody builds a Mothman suit. That would be fun.
Yes, with the jetpack, perhaps.
Wouldn't that be fun? Jetpacks, or even they have these like parachute wings. If you get it high enough, you can just use the parachute wings and glide down. So who knows?
And Joanne says she wished she'd had 8 arms and hands sometimes. Yes, I think most of us who've had to deal with children have felt that way, or pets.
Yeah, but any differences we have would be normal to us in in that space. So if we had 8 arms, we'd be like, "Oh, wow, this is great. I'm glad that we have this many arms. I wish I had two more, or worse, "Oh, I wish I didn't have this many." But it would be completely normal. You wouldn't think of it as being anything but different. I think that's what the difference. What makes cryptids so interesting is that they're non-ordinary reality. Now, in New York, there was a cryptid, and I was finding out about it. They've got cryptid rats. There's a thing called a king rat. This is a real thing.
Yeah.
Uh, and that would be, and they've seen it, and this thing's like 3 to 4 feet long. It stands up with its head's legs, and it gibbers, it jabbers, and it can grab rats, and it can do things. And people have claimed to have seen this thing, and it lives in New York, so it's like an intelligent super rat that lives down there, and actually shows real intelligence and real leadership over the rats population there. And
Wow.
that's a believable one to me. I can see that rats, which are colony beings, have a particular rat or a breed of rats, like Morlocks over the Elise, that run the rats. I mean, that doesn't. I don't have a real problem with that one. That one's like that, huh? And so you have these king rats or queen rats who just basically tribal, and the queen rats are cryptids that basically just pump out babies all the time, and they're huge and they're big. And occasionally they catch one and they show it, the Norway rats and things of that nature. Hi, Lori. She says that's true. She's a New Yorker. She would know. So they have. So you get these cryptid stories about the rat god or the rat kings, and people occasionally see them, and they're like big, and they go so far as being were rats.
A were rat. Now, that's a scary thought.
Oh, sure, were rats it was common that people would turn into a rat, not a werewolf, but they would get bitten, and it probably was related to early rabies, and they would turn into it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Master Splinter of the Rat. So we said. There you go. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Heroes in a half shell.
Hmm. One of the few comics I turned away when I had a chance to buy the first edition. Four different comic books: Radioactive Hamsters, Adolescent Aardvarks, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and The Zoo on Parade. All black and white, all first edition for $10.
Wow.
And I didn't like black and white and I didn't like black and white comics. I thought it was ridiculous. Huh?
Wow.
Yeah,
Turtle power.
Turtle Power. If I would have known, I would have picked that up. And actually, the turtle one, Teenage Mutant Turtle one, wasn't actually the most valuable out of it. Radioactive Hamsters was because it was the only edition they ever made of it by the same artist. That was actually more valuable.
I could have bought the original Teenage Mutant Ninja action figures when I worked for Target stores and just saved them for 10 years.
So, getting back to I think our final thing. So, what we're kind of concluding is that cryptids are out there. They may be out there, and maybe we'll get Neil to do some chasing the endless summer. We'll see if we can hunt some down. But if you know anything about there,
Ooh,
oh yeah.
that would be awesome.
So it'll be possible if you help us with our Kickstarter campaign. Um, we kind of backed off a little bit, but not by choice, and we're going to get ourselves back involved. We think it's still very well. Um, and everything else. So on Monday, we're going to have a very special daily spell. It'll be earlier. It'll be called part of the Chancellor Chat. It'll be broadcast across our network. And it'll be for a healing spell, a healing ritual for Reverend Don Lewis, who, as we know, had a near fatal cardiac event. Not a heart attack, I've been pointed out over and over again, but something that really caused damage. He's still in the hospital today. 6 days later, he's still in the hospital. They're still working on him. They're still being there. And on Monday, we're going to have a great ritual for him. We got a schedule put up, so I'm really happy with all of that. We're going to be doing a lot of change, but here's what I need from all of you folks out there. If you're interested in being a guest, an occasional co-host, and or everything else for any show, and I'm looking for particularly for the Daily Spell in the evening. And I'm also looking for maybe the Daily Spell in the morning or news in the morning. If you've got an idea of how you want to share a talk show with us and be part of the Daily Spell or any number of little talk shows, please write us at paganworldtv at gmail.com. DM me at the Pagan or Mary Hawk.
Yeah, Mary Hawk on Facebook. Please get in touch with us. We'd love to speak with you, and please support us at witchstarter.com. We have some great perks, and we'll be
And
bringing more about that to you shortly.
right, absolutely. And we get and on Monday is our 30th days out, so the campaign gets really important. Um, so kind of just check it out. Let us know what you're thinking, what you like, and think about joining our team. And as we leave tonight, it was 1,524 on our Kickstarter campaign with 32 days ago. We're actually doing pretty well. But help us kind of create. Go ahead.
I was just saying we are doing great, but we still need help so we can bring you an even better season 2.
Alrighty then. Well, okay, folks. Thank you. Do you want to end this? We usually end it with a little prayer, but we didn't yesterday. Do you want to end it with a little prayer, Mary, Reverend Mary?
Okay, I will be honored to. Beloved Mother Goddess, beloved Father God, beloved ancestors, we thank you for this wonderful world that we live in with things we've explained and things we haven't. Help us keep our sense of wonder. And we also lift up Reverend Don Lewis for healing for him as he recovers from this cardiac incident. And may we all blessed be. Thank you. Thank you for joining us and have a great evening. And we'll be back with you on Monday.